Hello, welcome to this video. In the last video, we spoke about Dunder Proto Dunder and how user 1 was bridged with the increment function with the help of Dunder Proto Dunder. We spoke about the prototype chain and we spoke about how this implementation is the behind scenes of the new keyword. Let me run this function and let us see the console. Here we have a key value pair of name John Doe and items 2. Here we don't have the increment function. We are referencing the increment function which is saved inside of a different object by this dunder proto dunder proto. Sorry, dunder proto dunder, which is an object. This dunder proto dunder is what connects users with the function repo. Now before we go into the new keyword, let us reiterate about what we spoke in the last video. As I told you, we spoke about Dunder Proto Dunder and how it acts as a bridge between users and function repo. When I open the Dunder Proto Dunder, we have this increment key and a value of increment function. This increment key is result of this function increment, which is residing inside of the function repo. If this would have been decrement, here we would have had decrement instead of increment. Now, when we go into the increment function, we have a name of increment and we have this prototype. Have a look at this prototype because we are going to refer this prototype when we speak about the new keyword. And instead of the hidden property dunder proto dunder, we have this increment key, and instead of the increment key, what happened? Instead of the increment key, we have dunder proto dunder as well. Now when we go back outside, we have this dunder proto dunder, and this is known as the prototype chain. What is prototype chain exactly? Now instead of increment, if the user 1 would have been called with decrement function, we don't have decrement function inside of our function repo. But what if we had called decrement instead of increment? It would have JavaScript would have gone inside of this dunder proto dunder and would have looked for decrement function. It would have searched over here, and if it wouldn't have found decrement function at the top layer, it would have gone inside of this dunder proto dunder object, and if it wouldn't have found there as well, it would have gone deep inside. It would go until it finds the decrement function and only exits out if it doesn't find the decrement function, and this is known as the prototype chain. Traversing down the chain with the help of the hidden property dunder proto dunder is known as the prototype chain. And this dunder proto dunder acts as a bridge between user 1 and the function repo because of the JavaScript nature of the prototype inheritance. Now let us see how this implementation is the behind scenes implementation of the new keyword. But before we start coding, let me tell you what the new keyword does automatically for us. If we add new keyword before the user's function, new keyword is going to do three things for us. It's going to create an empty object with the name this automatically for us. It's going to return the value automatically for us, and it's going to eliminate object.create for us. It's going to create object automatically for us as well. So when we add new, we need not return the new user. We need not create this one as well, and this new user is no longer available, and this new user is replaced with this because we are creating an empty object, and the empty object has a variable name of this. Okay, let me delete them. Let me remove this as well. Let me uncomment this and let me uncomment this. Remember that when we console log this one, and instead of the increment function, we had this prototype. We are going to speak about this prototype right now. Now I'm going to create a file and I'm going to name it new keyword.js. Instead of new keyword.js, I'm going to define a function and I'm going to call it users, and users is going to take two parameters, name and items. And instead of the function, I am going to assign a key to this object by using the dot notation syntax. So this dot name being the key, and I am assigning the value of name which is coming from the parameter, and this dot items is the key, and items being the value is coming from the parameter. Now as I told you, we need not return the values. New takes care of it. Now here, instead of object create, we passed in function repo. But how are we going to do that with the new keyword? Here we don't, with the new keyword, we don't have this option of passing the function repo inside of which our functions reside. With the new keyword, we are going to use this prototype. We are going to use this prototype object. Prototype object, see, the prototype as a hidden property of object. So prototype is an object. Prototype is an object which is empty. We are going to call it with our user's function. We all know that in JavaScript functions behave as objects as well. So we are going to use the prototype object, and instead of prototype object, we are going to send in the key of increment, and we are going to assign it a value of function, and we are going to return the pre-incremented value of this dot items. Now I am going to create a new variable, and I'm assigning it the value of user. I'm assigning it the name of user1, and this time I'm going to call users function with the new keyword, so new users, and I'm passing the arguments of John Doe and items argument to be 3. Let me console log user1. And I'm clearing the console. I'm pulling this a little bit on the top. When I run the function, we get users with the name John Doe and items to be 3. Now let me call the increment function just to make sure that this works. When I call the increment function, I'm getting the output to be 4. We have 3 here and we have 4. So when I expand this one, we can see that instead of the dunder proto dunder, we have this increment function. This increment function is the result of this increment function inside of the prototype object. And instead of the increment function, we have this the same that we witnessed in this code, where we saw the increment function instead of the dunder proto. It behaves exactly the same. Now what's happening? The dunder proto dunder, it's a mouthful. This dunder proto dunder acts as a bridge between the user1 and, I'm in the wrong code, acts as a bridge between the user1 and the prototype in this case. In this case, it was the bridge between the user1 and the function repo, but in this case, it acts as a bridge between users and the prototype. So whatever functions are inside of the prototype, this dunder proto dunder is going to make it accessible to the user1 object. So now suppose if we had created a new function instead of the prototype object, decrement function return this dot items, this dunder proto dunder would make decrement accessible to user1. Console.log user1 dot decrement, and when we call it, we get 3. Let me console log users. Console log user1. Let me clear the console. Okay. When I call users, and instead of the dunder proto dunder, we have this decrement and increment, which is inside of the prototype object. Okay, I think this is enough for this video. Let's have a recap in the next video. Thanks for watching this video. See you in the next video.